Bill Nye in the lab.
The United States would be a very different place if the automobile had never been invented. For one thing, there'd be no traffic. It's also unlikely there would be shopping malls, drive-through restaurants, gas stations, traffic lights, mega travel plazas, parking lots, or superhighways. The car changed everything. It took just a few decades to refine the technology, but the idea was around for centuries.
Words appear, the automobile.
Americans drive more than 1.5 trillion miles every year. That's over 60 million times the Earth's circumference. This staggering statistic is made possible by the automobile. No one person invented the automobile as we know it. It emerged through the integration of many other important inventions and ideas.
4 lanes of traffic flow, an illustration of an early vehicle.
But the first person known to build an automobile that actually worked was Nicholas Joseph Cugnot in 1769. The lumbering machine had a steam engine that propelled it at a thrilling 2.5 miles per hour. He also invented the automobile accident when he crashed his vehicle into a wall.
A man sports a bushy black mustache.
A German engineer named Karl Benz built the first gasoline-powered internal combustion automobile in 1885.
A man with a white beard.
Another German engineer named Gottlieb Daimler further enhanced the automobile in 1886 when he introduced a 4-wheeled version with a more powerful engine.
A man crank starts an automobile with a woman passenger.
Manufacturing automobiles was still a slow and costly process in those years, making them impossible for all but the wealthy to afford. Automobile production was revolutionized in 1908 when a mechanic named Henry Ford invented a new system of manufacturing. By simplifying parts and developing an assembly line, Ford was able to produce cars quickly and inexpensively. The Ford Model T was mass-produced from 1908 through 1927. The original price was $850, which dropped to less than $300 by 1925. In 1920, roughly half the cars in the world were Model Ts.
A Model T bumps down a dirt.
Henry Ford was born July 30th, 1863 in Greenfield, now Dearborn, Michigan. He died on April 4th, 1947, also in Dearborn, Michigan. Ford revolutionized the American way of life by manufacturing the first car that was affordable for the average person, the Model T Ford. He streamlined the manufacturing process by using the assembly line and standardized parts in his factory. A pacifist, he made a sincere but unsuccessful attempt at organizing peace talks to end World War I. The still thriving Ford Motor Company is a testimony to the depth of change Henry Ford brought about in U.S. manufacturing, the national economy, and the American way of life.
Growing up on a Michigan farm, young Henry Ford tinkered with engines to avoid doing other chores. He couldn't have imagined that his name would one day be synonymous with the automobile. But by 1913, his dream of manufacturing cars had become a reality. Model Ts rolled off the assembly line at the rate of 1 every 93 minutes. Ford succeeded in producing a reliable, affordable vehicle for the American public. In 1915, Ford, a confirmed pacifist, tried to single-handedly end the conflict of World War I. After discussing his plan with Secretary of the Navy Daniels, Ford led an unauthorized peace mission to Stockholm, Sweden. After European leaders ignored his efforts, the disappointed Ford returned home, where he renewed ties with old friends, including his former employer Thomas Edison and horticulturist Luther Burbank. His love of science lifted Ford's depression and inspired him to return to what he did. Ford's friendship with Edison went back to when he had worked for the prolific inventor. The talents of these remarkable men produced technology that helped change a predominantly rural nation into a bustling urban society. As Secretary of Commerce, Herbert Hoover honored Ford when the automaker's factory produced its 15 millionth car. Ford's development of interchangeable parts and assembly line production had paid off not only for this ambitious man from Michigan, but also for his countrymen, who were now able to travel the countryside in their automobiles. Even as he took the reins of this horse-drawn trolley car, Ford must have realized that its time was coming to an end in the changing environment that he himself had so radically altered. At the beginning of World War II, manufacturing was going strong at the Ford Rouge plant, a huge self-contained factory. But as production surged, Ford's personal popularity fell. The American public did not like his seeming tolerance of German nationalism. Other car manufacturers began using newly developed technologies, while Ford stubbornly resisted change. His critics criticized him from the comfortable front seat of the family car. Even so, when Henry Ford died in 1947, his countrymen mourned him as one of the great industrialists who changed the American way of life. The company that bears his name, the Ford Motor Company, is still providing us with new automobiles today.
Henry Ford, a lifetime of achievements. He used the internal combustion engine to move a drivable vehicle. He developed the Model T, a car affordable for the average person. He revolutionized manufacturing by using the assembly line and standardized parts in his factories. He made a personal attempt to bring about peace during World War I. He completely changed the way Americans work, play, and travel by making it possible for them to travel long distances on their own.
Anywhere you go in America, you will see a Ford car. The story of Ford is the most American of stories. It was a uniquely American approach to all of the new technologies of the 20th century, one that separated the United States from its European roots. It was making these new technologies available to everyone. No one person embodied this notion of universal consumerism better than Henry Ford. In 1899, cars were seen as little more than toys for the wealthy. But the perception of the automobile as a wealthy plaything changed just 10 years later. In 1910, Charles Duryea, who with his brother built the first American automobile, wrote,
"The novelty of owning an automobile has largely worn off. The whole family has become accustomed to auto riding."
The man most responsible for the change in attitude toward the automobile was Henry Ford. From the beginning of his experiments with automobiles, Ford looked for the universal car. It had to be powerful, durable. It must have a reliable engine and be economical. To this purpose, in 1903, Henry Ford launched the Ford Motor Company with capital of $100,000. 5 years later, Ford introduced his universal car in 1908 and named it the Model T. The first year, he mass-produced 10,000 Model Ts, the most by any manufacturer at the time. But Ford's innovation did not stop at a reliable auto. His most brilliant idea was the moving assembly line, where the vehicles rode a trolley through the plant and parts were brought to the mechanics assembling the cars. This was the advent of mass production. At that time, Ford could lay claim not only to the most reliable, most inexpensive car, but his labor practices gave him a dedicated workforce as well. In 1914, he introduced the then high base wage scale of $5 a day. Ford even found work for handicapped individuals. Soon the car reached into almost every facet of American life. In fact, by 1920, millions of people throughout the United States, directly or indirectly, owed their livelihoods to the manufacture of automobiles. It was America's biggest industry. The car would change the rituals of American life from travel to dining to courtship. But perhaps its most alluring aspect was that it blurred the lines of class and color. Anyone could own an automobile, from the poorest black man in the St. Louis ghetto to the richest matriarch in New York City. By the 1930s, the automobile was a symbol of freedom. A generation later, it would be the centerpiece of the youth culture. Movies would glorify the freedom of young people through the metaphorical symbol of the motorcycle and automobile. At the opening of the 21st century, it is impossible to imagine a world without the freedom of movement the automobile has given Americans.